Okay, I want to show you another way to run Python code. And this is using something called a Jupyter Notebook. You can see I have something called Jupyter here. And it's called a Jupyter Notebook. And it's a place where you can run Python code, and you can also it's much prettier than the normal way that we've learned for writing Python code. For example, here's some Python code here. I'll just show you this first before we go on. And you can recognize some of it as Python code. For example, you can see some stuff here that probably looks a little bit like Python to us. Maybe some more stuff here, and here, and here, and so on. So this kind of looks like sort of familiar to us, at least a little bit. Looks something like some code. But you'll see also that you can have regular text in here. So the advantage of this, using something like Jupyter, is that you can put your code in here, you can run it, but you can also have text here, like if you want to explain something and then have people run it, and then they can sort of see the explanation up here. And so it's kind of much more handy than just using something like idle. So how do we get this running? So this comes from a website called Jupyter.org up here, and we can install something to run it. Now, usually the way people get this set up is they download something called Anaconda. So they Anaconda Python, and you can find that, and the site is here, and you can download this, and this will get you running as well. But this is a huge file to download and install. It's very good if you're learning, if you want to use data science, because it comes with a whole lot of extra stuff. But there's one problem that I find for myself, and that is it typically will install a new version of Python, and then you have sort of two versions of Python on your system, and then you have to sort of figure out which version you're using, and it's kind of confusing, at least for someone who's just confusing at the beginning. So I think it's better, or easier at least, not to use Anaconda, at least at the beginning. So what we'll do is we'll just use Jupyter, which Anaconda has Jupyter inside it. When you download this whole thing called Anaconda, you'll be downloading Jupyter as well, but we don't want to download all of Anaconda. Now, I can recommend that you go to YouTube and you find this video here, Jupyter Notebooks without Anaconda, and he talks a lot of the details and some other side issues and so on. And so it's probably be interesting for you to take a look at this. But I'm just going to give you the basics here. So for the basics, all we have to do is bring up the command prompt in Windows, or I guess the terminal in Mac. And then all you have to do is what we've done basically before: pip install, and then type Jupyter. I think this is right, Jupyter. Kind of a funny spelling, Jupyter, and that's all you have to do. Notice that Jupyter is spelled P-Y like Python, and that's all you have to do to install this on your computer so that you can run this kind of notebook, called a notebook up here. This is called a notebook here. So to run this, all you need to do is to install that first, and that will take a while to install, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to install. And once you install it, then all you have to do is type this. So once it finishes installation, all you have to do is type Jupyter Notebook. Now hopefully it will work then. And what I mean by work is it will sort of switch to your browser. What it does is it's running a server. So you know that whenever you look at a web page, there's a server somewhere that's serving that page to you, so to speak. And so this sets up a little local server on your own personal computer, and so it runs that, and you can see it sort of has like an address here. It's called localhost. So that means that it's a server that's local to your computer, and so hopefully it will do that and actually open up the web page. Now sometimes it doesn't automatically open up the page, and then he kind of tells you what to do to get that to work. But hopefully it'll just open up a web page with using your default browser. So my default browser is Microsoft Edge right now. So it opened it up in Microsoft Edge, and actually it opens up. So it depends where you are when you run that command. What was the command again? Jupyter Notebook. So I was here. I guess I was here, and then I clicked on my downloads folder. And then this is like your downloads folder, and you can sort it by name, or you can sort it by last modified, and so on, just like you can do in your file explorer. So once you have this, you can open up a new file by going over here, and let's try and do that. So let's open up a new Python 3. It's called a notebook, but it's a file, so to speak, and you get this. And here you can type in either text or you can type in Python code. So what I did here was, so here what you do is you switch from, let's do it here. So you switch from code to what's called Markdown, or maybe heading might also work. And then there's something called Markdown language, which is sort of like HTML language, but it's much easier to write than HTML. So if you want a header, you can do this. So this is a kind of a small header. So if you have 3 hash marks there, it's smaller than if you have just 2. And if you have 1, it's even larger header. So if you want a relatively small header, let's say that. And then you have to remember to enter a space and then type, this is a level, I guess this would be level 4 header. In other words, it's not such a big header. And then you run this cell. So now I've entered some text there, so that's kind of nice. You can write things here, and it's not Python code, but you can also run Python code. So let's try some very simple Python code so that you can do print hello. Let's run that, and so you can see that it ran the code. So you can run code in these are called cells, but you can also change the type of cell from code to Markdown. And then you can do, I guess you could just type regular text here. Now we will try some new code. So that's kind of my text, and I'll run it. And then I can write in some new code, x equals 8, and run that. Click here. And now if I want to refer to x, I've already defined x, so I can refer to it just like that, or I guess let's try that. I can do it that way, or I can also do this, print x. Okay? So this is called a Python notebook here. And once you've made all your code and you've kind of added in some text here so that it makes it easier for people to read it and so on, you can save it, and you can share this file with other people. And of course, they will need a Jupyter running on their computer to run it, but you can share the file with them. So the way you can do that is one way to do that is here, File, and Save As, test file, test notebook, file, and save it. And then you can check, and you can see it's going to be there. And there are some other commands here, like here, I can insert a cell above here, so insert cell above, and that puts a cell up here that now I can run some code up here. And you can run cells, you can run all of the cells, and there's more details to know here. This is just a very, very simple introduction. Now, many tutorials or projects will write all of their work in this kind of Python notebook file. And by the way, notice the ending of the file. When it saves a file, you can see the ending is IPYNB. So IPython notebook. So people will write projects and tutorials and all kinds of stuff, and they'll write them as a notebook, and then they make them available. And one common place to share that is on GitHub. So let me show you how you can get a file that you've found on GitHub, or that someone pointed you to their file which is on GitHub, how you can download it and then run it. So for example, I was looking at this tutorial in statistics, something called time series. But anyway, I was just watching this video, and he says if you want to follow along with this video and try it out yourself, try out the code yourself, he's provided all of the code that he's going to go through, and he's provided it at GitHub. So if you go down and you check, he says here, the code and data are available at my GitHub. So if you click on this, so he has actually many tutorials here, and the one from that video is this one here called time series data. You can see it's .ipynb. So one way to get this file, there are different ways to get it, but one way to get it without having your own GitHub account is to click on it, Now, to have your own GitHub account is it's free, so it's not like it doesn't cost you anything. You can set up your own GitHub account, but then you have to learn more about GitHub to get this file in a different way. But this is one way to get it without having a GitHub account. So you can see that it's the same kind of structure that we just saw. There are cells here. Some of the cells are text. Other cells have code in them, and so on. But actually, here we can't run this. This is not runnable. This is at GitHub, and this is just how GitHub displays this file. It displays it in the same way that we would see it on Jupyter, but in our Jupyter Notebook. But it's actually not runnable here. But anyway, we can save it to our computer, and then we can run it. You can click on raw. You get this, which is that same code, but it's now you can save it, and you can just right-click on it and save it as, and it's in my Microsoft Edge, it's going to save it as a text file. So I tried to delete this and just save it as an IP, this thing, and let me just give it a different name because I already have a file called that, but it's still, I don't think it's going to save it like this. It's going to save it as a text file. But anyway, let's try it, save, and then I'll check in my download folder, and I can see it, but it is called a .txt, so I have to change the name of that. Let's see if I can do that right now. So get rid of the .txt. Windows will say, oh, you really want to change the file type? And I'll say yes. Do you want to change the file type? Yes. And now it's just a IPYNB file. Okay, now I can go back to Jupyter here, and as I said, you can navigate through different files. So originally I was here, and I navigated to downloads, and now I can sort by last modified. Do that again. Okay, so here you can see it, and this is the file that he shared, and now I can follow along with the tutorial. So I can just open this up, and here's the tutorial. So then I can run his code. So like I can run these import files, import commands, and so on. I can read in a CSV file. That's what he's doing here. Now, of course, I have to have the CSV file, and I don't have that, so I have to go back and see. He must have provided that as well, or hopefully he provided that as well. So going back to his GitHub page here and checking in his files. So let's just go back here to the beginning, by the way. This is here, and these are the files, and I guess there's the icecream.csv file here. So I'd have to download that as well. So if I type on raw, we could try saving this. It's going to be a little bit tricky. We'll save it as an icecream.csv. Maybe this will work. So I'll try saving that. Okay, actually it worked. I just downloaded it here. I could open this up as an Excel file. And you can see that that is the CSV file. And that's the file that he's using, and that's the file that I would need to continue with his tutorial. You can see here that there's a statement. This is actually reading in that file. But you know that you may have to install this using pip. We've learned how to install modules, and then we can import them the way he's importing them. So this actually worked. And then here I'm using this package, this module called NumPy, and I'm calling it NP. So I'm using, PD, pandas, and I'm calling it PD. So I'm pandas, and then there's a function here. Actually, we call it a module. A method called read CSV, and we're reading this file. And I think this also will work. So it probably also worked. And then if I want to look at the beginning of that CSV file, I guess I can run this, and this is what we see. So it is working. And so I was able to download his file, and now I can go through the tutorial that he's presenting here along with him. Okay, so that is how to run a Jupyter Notebook, and this is not the standard way that you find. They usually tell you to install Anaconda, like I said, but this is much cleaner, I think, than installing Anaconda, unless you really want Anaconda itself and all the extra stuff that's in there. Okay, thank you for watching.